In 2018, the FIFA World Cup in Russia was won by the France national team. The vast majority of players in that squad could have played for other countries because their parents, grandparents, or great-grandparents were born outside of Europe. Here in England, as well as in Belgium, Switzerland, and other European nations, many stars are also children of those born in, say, Nigeria or Ghana. Almost all leading European national teams look completely different today compared to just 30 years ago. How did this happen? It seems like the answer is obvious. There were simply more and more immigrants in these countries, but that's not quite the right answer. This episode on Euroshift channel is about how migration has changed European football. Why is it that while right-wing politicians are gaining popularity across Europe, football national teams look like an advert for multiculturalism? How does football cope with what the state fails to handle? Why do people who haven't lived a single day in Turkey or Morocco now play for their national teams? How does football help children who will never become superstars? How did negative population growth help Curaçao reach the World Cup for the first time in history? And finally, does Marine Le Pen cheer for Kylian Mbappe? Migrants from the Caribbean islands began arriving in England as early as the late 1940s. They brought reggae and ska, influenced the birth of jungle. But the people who changed British music beyond recognition hardly made it into our football for decades. In Germany, people from Turkey arrived in massive numbers right after the war. Gastarbeiter, meaning guest worker, is a German word. But in our professional teams and German ones, it was initially very rare to see black footballers or the children of Turkish workers. In British football back then, genuine racism prevailed. Against the backdrop of an economic crisis and rising unemployment, the popularity of far-right movements grew, shaping a hostile culture in stadiums. Being a black footballer in England was, to put it mildly, uncomfortable. Clubs were reluctant to take children of immigrants into their academies. Furthermore, stereotypes were widespread, such as black players are undisciplined or poor at following tactical instructions. The first non-white player in our national team, Viv Anderson, appeared only in 1978, surprisingly late for a country where the Caribbean community had already been influencing everyday life for decades. And until the 90s, such cases were exceptions. Moreover, these footballers, after being called up to represent us, even received racist abuse and written threats in the post. Roughly the same was happening in Germany with children from Turkish families. The youth academies of top clubs simply ignored them, and many coaches just didn't pay attention to them. In other words, migrants had already been playing an important role in the economy and culture of these countries for many years, but not in football. And it turns out this could be a serious problem. If you consciously exclude a part of your population, you reduce competition and end up with a national team that isn't as strong as it could be. Our national team and the German team in the late 90s and early 2000s looked rather lackluster compared to the Dutch or the French. The Germans failed embarrassingly at both the 1998 World Cup and Euro 2000. These failures shocked Germany and forced football officials to start a massive reform of youth football. The main thing was the focus on mass and early talent scouting, including in migrant neighborhoods. In the revamped academies, they began accepting talented children without paying attention to their background anymore. Similar changes were happening in parallel in our country and Belgium as we realized we were falling behind. At the 1998 World Cup, there wasn't a single player with a migration background in the Germany squad. By Euro 2016, there were 10 out of 23. Today, it's impossible to find a Western European national team that doesn't have such players. In some teams, they became leaders. Ibrahimovic in Sweden, Alaba in Austria, Lukaku in Belgium. This illustrates how post-war Europe turned into a space of gradual integration. Clubs and national teams began to use a wider pool of talent that previously simply didn't make it into professional football. This openness made football in these countries more diverse. In just one generation, European national teams stopped looking like themselves from 10 years ago. Roughly speaking, Holland in the 70s was tactical, but not the most athletic. But the children of the fathers from Suriname gave it more speed and dynamics. France used to lack physical power, but now it's one of the most athletic teams in the world. Germany was always considered a machine. Today, it's a very technical and creative team. Our England team for many years loved a fairly primitive style. Run down the wing, cross it in, aerial battle. But starting from the 2000s, our national team gained generations of very diverse, inventive, and technical players. All this is thanks to cultural diversity. By becoming more open, the football system started finding talented children it hadn't noticed before. It is surprising that all these obviously positive changes were happening alongside the rise of anti-immigrant sentiment. Why did they not hinder the growth of multiculturalism in football, which turned out to be resilient to right-wing populism? In 2012, an Austrian politician famously met David Alaba and spoke to him in English. "How do you do?" Alaba replied, "Speak German, I'm actually Austrian." This story was widely discussed because it seemed so extraordinary. Absurd stories of this kind happened in other countries too. In 1996, Jean-Marie Le Pen in France stated that it's not normal to recruit players from abroad and call it the France national team. But just 2 years later, after the victory at the World Cup, he claimed the celebrations gave him pleasure. And what else could he do? Zinedine Zidane, of Algerian descent, was the most beloved person in the country. Attempts to criticize the national team for diversity didn't increase the popularity of right-wing politicians. Subsequently, the right only tried to stir up the topic when the national team hit a bad patch. But when France won the World Cup again in 2018, even Marine Le Pen was tweeting her pride.
When I read stories from Africa and when I watch what politicians say, especially in France, about African migrants, when they are unemployed, when they may commit a crime, or when they are considered unsavory, it's the African immigrants. When their children go on to provide a World Cup victory for France, we should only refer to them as France.
The loudest scandal in Germany was the story of Mesut Ozil, who stated, "When we win, I am German, but when we lose, I am an immigrant." He accused the German media and politicians of double standards. On the whole, football turned out to be more resilient than the world around it because players win and fail together. Coaches and fans primarily look at the performance of the right back, not his background. It's very strange to cheer for a winning goal today and suspect the player of disloyalty tomorrow because he's not a native of 10 generations. Naturally, this doesn't mean that everyday racism no longer exists, but for a sincere racist today, it's extremely difficult to be a real football fan. Modern football creates an environment where hating people based on their origin is socially unprofitable. Try showing racist tendencies in the stands of our London clubs like Arsenal today. It simply isn't tolerated. Football in Western Europe has clearly benefited from migration, but the countries people were leaving haven't lost out either. Migration isn't a zero-sum game. Under FIFA rules, a player can play for the country of their parents or grandparents. A footballer born and trained in a German academy might decide to play for Turkey. Competition for a place in the Germany team is higher, so why not accept an offer from an ancestral homeland? So now, hundreds of products of European academies play for other national teams. For example, Turkey actively looks for candidates in Germany, and African countries look in France and Belgium. In other words, the football of Morocco or Senegal has started to benefit from the fact that thousands of people once left for Europe. The Curaçao national team recently reached the World Cup with a squad where almost everyone was born and raised in the Netherlands. The Morocco national team, the sensation of the 2022 World Cup, had 14 out of 26 players born and raised outside of Morocco. They're getting Champions League level players without spending a penny on their development. Of course, choosing a national team can be dramatic. Hakim Ziyech was born in the Netherlands but chose to play for Morocco. He was criticized by Dutch legends like Ronald Koeman, but in the end, he helped Morocco reach a historic semifinal. In this new reality, political conflicts can arise, like when Switzerland players with Kosovo-Albanian roots celebrated a goal against Serbia with the eagle gesture. One might ask how the success stories of superstars solve the problems of mass immigration for regular people. Jamal Musiala recalled that when he moved to England, he spoke almost no English and used the language of football to be understood on the pitch. Romelu Lukaku in Belgium had a similar experience, using football as an outlet when he faced questions about his identity. On the football pitch, even if it's just a concrete pitch in a housing estate, players form a common identity that reduces xenophobia. Common rituals, the kit, the warm-up, the celebrations turn strangers into your own. Research shows football helps migrant children settle faster than regular schooling might. It lowers the barriers of language, status, and origin. A kid who speaks poor English can become a hero on the pitch as a striker. In football, family wealth doesn't matter. The most expensive boots won't turn a poor player into a star. And this works for adults too. Football helps adults integrate faster than state programs. It helps you get into a living social environment with locals. On the terraces or in a supporters club, origin ceases to matter. If you support the same team, you are one of the lads. Shared rituals, away trips, group chats create a sense of belonging. It's why many fans of our English clubs or German clubs might also follow the national teams of their heritage, like Turkey or Algeria. It isn't a conflict of identities, but an expansion of them. Amateur football works even better. It's a social elevator. You find friends, jobs, and housing through your local team. Does mass migration create problems? Yes, of course. But for many European countries, migration is a demographic reality. Football shows that successful integration can be a working practice. Few other social spheres show such success. All that's needed are common rules, clear criteria, and a sense of belonging. Our national team and those across Europe prove that migration can make society more diverse and therefore stronger. Thank you for watching this deep dive on Euroshift channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your comments below. Goodbye, and all the best.